He didn't walk into his penthouse office, he claimed it. The marble floors echoed with each step, as if the building itself bowed to him. His tailored suit hugged his frame like armor, his cufflinks glinting under the recessed lighting, platinum, engraved with his initials. He didn't need to shout to be heard. His silence commanded more than any roar. But today there was something different in the air, a tremor beneath the polished surface. Not fear, not yet, but anticipation, like a predator sensing prey, or perhaps like a man preparing to burn down his own house just to feel the heat. He poured himself a glass of single malt, 30 years old, $2,500 a bottle, and stared out the window at the skyline. Below, the world moved in chaos. Cars, people, dreams colliding. Above, he stood still, untouchable, or so he thought. A soft knock. "Come in," he said, voice low, smooth as velvet over stone. The door opened. Lena Moretti stepped inside. Young, radiant, dressed in silk that clung to her like second skin. Her smile was practiced, perfect, the kind that belonged on magazine covers and corporate events. She carried a tablet, but everyone knew she carried far more. His secrets, his desires, his shame. "You're early," Elias murmured, not turning around. "I wanted to make sure everything's ready for tonight," she replied, stepping closer. "The gala's going to be unforgettable." He finally turned. His eyes, sharp, calculating, unreadable, lingered on her for a moment longer than necessary. Then, a slow smirk. "It will be," he said, "because you'll be by my side, and everyone will see what I've chosen." Lena's smile faltered just slightly, enough for him to notice, enough for her to hide it behind a laugh. "You make it sound like I'm some trophy," she teased, leaning against his desk. "But we both know I'm more than that." Elias didn't answer immediately. He took a sip of whiskey, letting the burn settle in his throat before speaking. "You are," he admitted. "You're proof that I've moved on, that I'm not chained to the past, that I can have what I want, when I want it." His words were meant to comfort, to flatter, but they landed like stones in still water. Lena looked away, out the window, toward the city, toward the life she'd left behind. The quiet apartment, the art classes, the dreams of being an artist, not a mistress. She had traded her soul for security, for glamour, for the illusion of love. And now, standing here in this gilded cage, she wondered if it was worth it. "You think Isabella will come?" she asked softly, almost too quietly. Elias stiffened. "Just a fraction, but enough." "She'll come," he said coldly. "She always does. Even after I told her she wasn't welcome anymore. Even after I made it clear she's irrelevant." Lena swallowed. "And you're okay with that? With seeing her?" "I'm not afraid of ghosts," Elias replied, setting his glass down. "Especially ones that don't haunt me anymore." But he was lying. He knew it. And deep down, so did she. Because Isabella Thorne wasn't just his ex-wife. She was the woman who once held his heart, before he shattered it with indifference, with betrayal, with the cold logic of a man who believed money could buy loyalty, love, even redemption. She was the one who walked away without screaming, without begging, who smiled politely at his press releases announcing his new relationship, who never cried in public, who, instead, rebuilt herself from ashes, quietly, fiercely, beautifully. And tonight, at the gala, Elias would force her to watch as he paraded his new life beside him, as if to say, "Look what you lost. Look what I gained." It was cruel. It was petty. It was exactly the kind of move that made him powerful and utterly alone. Lena watched him, watched the way his jaw tightened when he mentioned Isabella's name, watched the flicker of something, regret, fear, in his eyes before he masked it with arrogance. She wanted to ask him why he cared so much. Why, after all these years, he still needed to prove something to her. But she didn't, because she knew the answer. He needed to prove he was better, stronger, unbreakable. But the truth was, he was already broken, and he didn't even realize it. The evening arrived like a storm waiting to break. The gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. a venue dripping in history, elegance, and unspoken rules. Chandeliers cast golden light over guests draped in couture, their laughter ringing hollow against the weight of their wealth. Waiters moved silently, pouring champagne into crystal flutes, as if serving liquid arrogance. Elias arrived first, hand in hand with Lena. Cameras flashed, whispers followed. Everyone turned. Everyone watched. He wore a midnight blue tuxedo, cut to perfection. Lena, beside him, was breathtaking. Her gown shimmering like starlight, her hair swept into an elegant chignon, her makeup flawless. She looked every inch the queen of his new kingdom. And yet, as they walked through the grand hall, Elias felt a strange emptiness. The applause, the admiration, it didn't fill the void inside him. It only echoed louder. He scanned the room, searching, and then there she was, Isabella Thorne, standing near the staircase, bathed in soft light, wearing a gown the color of molten gold. Her hair fell in loose waves over her shoulders. Her posture was regal, calm, untouchable, and beside her, Victor Langley. Victor, the man Elias had tried to destroy, the man who had once been his closest ally, until Elias betrayed him in a hostile takeover that cost Victor millions and nearly ruined his reputation. Now, Victor stood tall, smiling gently at Isabella as he whispered something in her ear. She laughed. A real laugh, warm and genuine, not forced, not performative. Elias froze, his breath caught, his chest tightened. Lena noticed. She squeezed his hand, a silent plea. Don't let her win. But it was too late. Isabella turned. Her eyes met his, and for the first time in years, Elias Thorne felt small. Not because she was beautiful, though she was. Not because she was with Victor, though that stung. But because she looked at him and saw nothing worth fighting for. No anger, no bitterness, no desire to reclaim him, just pity. And that was worse than hate. He tried to speak, tried to summon his usual confidence. But his voice failed him. Lena leaned in. Ignore her, she whispered. This is our night. But Elias couldn't ignore her, because Isabella wasn't just a memory. She was a mirror, reflecting everything he had lost, everything he had thrown away. And now, standing beside Victor, the man who had once been his equal, she was no longer the wounded wife he left behind. She was a queen who had crowned herself. And Elias, he was just a king who had forgotten how to rule. The dinner was torture. Every bite tasted like ash. Every toast felt like a funeral dirge. Elias sat across from Isabella, unable to look away. She spoke softly to Victor, her voice melodic, her gestures graceful. She didn't glance at him, didn't acknowledge him, as if he were invisible. And yet, he could feel her presence like a current running through the room. Electric, unavoidable. At one point, Victor stood to give a speech about resilience, about women who rise from ruins, about dignity in the face of betrayal. His eyes rested on Isabella. And sometimes, he said, voice rich with emotion, the greatest victories aren't won with money or power, but with silence, with grace, with the courage to walk away and become someone greater than the person who hurt you. The room erupted in applause. Elias clenched his fork so hard his knuckles turned white. Lena reached for his hand under the table. Let's go, she whispered. We don't need to stay. But Elias didn't move. He was trapped, not by the room, not by the guests, but by the realization that he had spent years trying to erase Isabella, and she hadn't just survived. She had thrived. And now she didn't need him. He had built an empire. He had conquered markets. He had seduced the world. But he couldn't conquer her, because she had already conquered herself. Later, outside, on the terrace overlooking Central Park, Elias found her alone. She was staring at the stars, a glass of water in her hand. No alcohol, no pretense, just peace. He approached slowly, cautiously, like a man approaching a wild animal he once owned, and now fears. Isabella, he said, voice rough. She didn't turn. Elias. Silence stretched between them, heavy, suffocating. You look well, he managed. So do you, she replied, still not looking at him. Still dressing like you're auditioning for a role in a movie about billionaires who forgot how to be human. He flinched. I didn't come here to fight, he said. I came to understand. Understand what? She asked, finally turning to face him. Her eyes were calm, deep, unreadable. That you thought bringing your girlfriend to a gala where I'd be would make me jealous? That it would prove you've moved on? He opened his mouth, but no words came. You're still the same man, she continued, voice soft but cutting. Always needing to win, always needing to control, always needing to prove that you're better than me, even though you never were. I loved you, he whispered. She smiled, sad, knowing. You loved the idea of me, the trophy wife, the obedient partner. You didn't love me. You loved what I represented: stability, class, beauty. When I became something else, something real, you threw me away. He looked down. Shame burned in his chest. I was wrong, he admitted. I was selfish. I was scared. Scared of what? She asked. Of losing you, he said, voice breaking. Of being alone. Of not being enough. Isabella stepped closer. Not to embrace him. Not to forgive him. But to look him in the eye, truly look at him. For the first time in years. You were never enough, she said gently. Because you never tried to be. You tried to be bigger, better, richer, but never whole. She turned to leave. Isabella, he called, desperation rising. Wait. She stopped, didn't turn back. I'm sorry, he said, for everything. She nodded barely. I know, but sorry doesn't rebuild what was broken. And I'm not broken anymore. And with that, she walked away, leaving him standing there alone, empty, the king of nothing. Back inside, Lena waited for him. She saw the pain in his eyes, the defeat. She touched his arm. Let's go home. He didn't answer. He just stared at the spot where Isabella had disappeared. Then, quietly, he said, I don't think I can go back to the way things were. Lena frowned. What do you mean? I don't want you to be my mistress anymore, he said. I want you to be something real. She pulled away. Real? You don't even know what that means. He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since they began. You deserve more than this, he said. More than me. Tears welled in her eyes. You're just saying that because you lost her. Maybe, he admitted, but it's still true. She shook her head. I'm not your consolation prize, Elias. I'm not your redemption story. I'm just tired. And with that, she walked away too, leaving him standing in the middle of the gala, surrounded by people, yet completely alone. The next morning, Elias sat in his office again. The same view, the same whiskey, the same silence. But something had changed. The world outside still moved, still buzzed, still judged. But inside him, the noise had stopped. He picked up his phone, scrolled through photos, found one old, faded. Him and Isabella, laughing on a beach in Santorini. Before the money, before the power, before the betrayal. He stared at it for a long time. Then he deleted it. Not out of anger, not out of spite, out of acceptance. He had spent years trying to bury the past. But the past wasn't dead. It was alive, breathing, watching, and it had finally caught up to him. In the weeks that followed, Elias withdrew. He stopped attending meetings, stopped giving interviews, stopped pretending. The media called it a breakdown. Investors panicked. Rumors spread. But Elias didn't care. He started reading books, not business strategy, but poetry, philosophy, memoirs of people who had lost everything and found themselves. He visited a therapist, not to fix his image, but to understand his pain. He even reached out to Isabella once, just to say he was sorry. Not for the gala, not for Lena, but for the years he wasted pretending he didn't need her. She didn't reply, and that was okay, because he didn't need her to forgive him. He needed to forgive himself. Meanwhile, Isabella continued her work, traveling, speaking, helping others rebuild their lives after trauma, betrayal, loss. She never mentioned Elias again. Not to the press, not to friends, not even to herself, because he no longer existed in her world. He was a chapter closed, a lesson learned, a ghost laid to rest. And Victor, he remained her friend, her ally, never her lover, never her savior, just a reminder that not all men are destroyers. Some are builders, and some, like her, are both. The final scene takes place 6 months later. Isabella walks through a park in London. Autumn leaves swirling around her feet. She's alone, content, free. A reporter approaches. "Ms. Thorne, can we get a comment on the rumors that Elias Thorne has stepped down as CEO of Thorne Industries?" She smiles, small, genuine. "I don't follow his career," she says. "I'm focused on mine." The reporter hesitates. "And how are you?" She looks up at the sky. Clear, blue, endless. "I'm free," she says. "And that's enough." She walks away. Behind her, the camera lingers. Not on her, but on the path she leaves behind. Empty, peaceful, beautiful. And then, faintly, the sound of footsteps. Elias stands at a distance, watching her go. He doesn't call out, doesn't chase her. He just watches. And for the first time in his life, he lets her go. Without rage, without regret, with peace. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning back what you lost. It's learning to live without it. ND, approximate. 6,000 characters, Cerdo, agora tu como narrador e storyteller desenvolva a historia sem marcacos com o nome de cada tópico que for desenvolve. Mi conti sobrio tópico tu com dialogo como seu faço espectador. Sempre lembrando de desenvolver com muita emoco. Com muitos sentimentos de forma que a estrutura de narrativa utiliza uma linha temporal linear de modo o espectador sentir o que o personagem está sentindo amigos. Com 6.000 characters quen 3VL 235B A22B. The rain fell like tears over Manhattan. Slow, steady, relentless. Not the kind that drowns you in seconds, but the kind that seeps into your bones, reminding you of every wound you thought had healed. Inside a penthouse on the Upper East Side. Not Elias Thorne's, but hers. Isabella sat alone at her vanity, staring at her reflection as if it belonged to someone else. She wasn't crying. She hadn't cried in years. Not since the day he left. Not since the day she packed her things, her art books, her silk scarves, her grandmother's pearls, and walked out of their home without looking back. Not because she was strong, but because she was broken. And sometimes, when you're shattered, the only thing left is silence. Her fingers traced the edge of an old photograph, black and white, slightly faded. Her and Elias, standing beneath a willow tree in Tuscany, his arm around her waist, her head resting against his shoulder. They looked happy, in love, unbreakable, but they weren't. They were just two people pretending that money, power, and passion could build a life. That ambition wouldn't devour tenderness. That ego wouldn't choke intimacy. She closed the photo album with a soft thud. "Still holding on?" came a voice from behind her. Isabella didn't turn. She knew who it was. Her best friend, Claire, the only person who'd stayed by her side after the divorce. The one who brought wine when she couldn't sleep. Who held her hand when lawyers read clauses about marital assets and non-compete agreements. Who reminded her every single day that she was more than a name attached to a billionaire. "I'm not holding on," Isabella whispered, voice raw. "I'm just remembering what it felt like to be loved." Claire stepped closer, placing a warm mug of chamomile tea beside her. "He didn't love you, Bella. He admired you. He needed you. But he never saw you." Isabella exhaled. Long, slow, trembling. "Maybe not. But I saw him. All of him. The man who stayed up all night reading poetry to me. The man who danced with me in the kitchen at 2 a.m. The man who cried when his father died, and let me hold him while he did." She swallowed hard. "That man existed. I know he did, because I loved him not for his empire, not for his name, but for the way he made me feel seen. Even when he was blind." Claire sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. And now? What do you feel now? Isabella stared at her reflection again. Eyes tired, lips pale, cheeks hollowed by years of quiet grief. Nothing, she said. Or everything. I don't know anymore. Sometimes I wake up and forget I'm divorced. Then I remember. And it feels like losing him all over again. Claire squeezed her gently. You didn't lose him. You chose yourself. Isabella turned to look at her. Eyes glistening, but no tears falling. Did I? Or did I just run away because I couldn't fight anymore? You didn't run, Claire said firmly. You rebuilt. You started a foundation for women who've been erased by men like him. You speak at global summits. You've helped hundreds of girls find their voice. You didn't disappear. You became unstoppable. Isabella looked down at her hands. Manicured, elegant, but calloused from years of working late nights, signing checks, negotiating deals, building something real, something that couldn't be bought or sold. I used to think my worth was tied to him, she admitted softly. That if I wasn't Mrs. Thorne, I was nobody. Now, I'm Isabella, just Isabella. No title, no husband, no mansion, just me. Claire smiled, small, proud. And that's the most powerful woman I've ever known. There was a pause, a moment of stillness. The rain tapped against the window like a heartbeat. Then, a notification chimed from Isabella's phone. She didn't want to look, but she did. It was an email from the gala committee. Subject, you're invited. Annual charity gala at the Met. Her stomach dropped. She opened it slowly. Dear Ms. Thorne, as a former patron and beloved figure in our community, we would be honored to have you attend this year's gala. Your presence would be a symbol of grace, resilience, and enduring legacy. Dress code, black tie. Date, October 14th. She scrolled further, and then there it was. Confirmed attendees include Mr. Elias Thorne and guest. Her breath caught. Elias, coming to the gala, with a guest, Lena Moretti. The name hit her like a slap. She remembered hearing whispers, months ago, about Elias' new relationship, about how he'd taken his young assistant to Europe, how they'd been photographed in Monaco, in St. Tropez, laughing under the sun like they owned the world. She hadn't cared. Not really, until now, because this wasn't just another party. This was a battlefield, and Elias was bringing his weapon. Isabella closed the email. Her fingers trembled. Claire watched her carefully. You don't have to go. I know, Isabella whispered, but I should. Why? Claire asked gently. To prove something? To hurt him? No, Isabella said, standing up. To remind myself that I don't need to prove anything. That I'm not defined by who I was married to, or who he's with now. She walked to the window, pressing her palm against the cold glass. Outside, the city glittered lights reflecting off wet pavement. Cars gliding through puddles. People rushing home, unaware of the storm brewing inside one woman's heart. I spent 18 years trying to make him happy, she said quietly. Now I want to make myself happy. And if that means walking into a room where he's parading his new life, then so be it. Claire stepped beside her. And what if he tries to talk to you? What if he asks for forgiveness? Isabella didn't answer immediately. She stared at the skyline, at the towers that housed billionaires, politicians, artists, dreamers, at the lives that rose and fell like tides. He won't ask for forgiveness, she said finally, because he doesn't believe he did anything wrong. To him, I was a phase, a chapter, a footnote in his success story. She turned to Claire, eyes blazing with quiet fire. But I'm not a footnote. I'm the whole damn book. Claire nodded. Then go write the next page. The next few days passed in a blur. Isabella threw herself into work. Meetings, interviews, planning sessions for her latest initiative, a scholarship fund for young women escaping abusive relationships. She spoke passionately, her voice steady, her gaze unwavering. People listened. People believed in her. But at night, alone in her apartment, the memories crept in. She'd dream of Elias, Not the cold, distant version he'd become, but the man he once was. The one who kissed her forehead before bed. Who whispered, "I love you," even when he was exhausted. Who held her hand during thunderstorms because she was afraid. She'd wake up gasping, heart pounding, sheets damp with sweat, and then she'd sit up, pour water, stare at the ceiling, and whisper to herself, "You are not his. You never were." It became her mantra, her armor, her truth. One evening, as she sat in her study reviewing grant applications, her phone rang. It was Victor Langley. She hesitated before answering. "Hello, Victor," she said, voice calm. "Isabella," he replied, voice smooth as aged whiskey. "I hear you've been invited to the gala." She sighed. "Word travels fast." "It always does when it involves Elias Thorne," Victor said dryly. "And you." There was a pause, a beat of silence. Then, "Would you like to go with me?" Isabella blinked. "What?" "I'll be attending," Victor continued, "and I'd be honored to escort you. As a friend, as an ally, as someone who knows exactly what that man is capable of and what you've overcome." Isabella didn't speak for a long moment. Victor waited patiently. He knew better than to rush her. Finally, she said, "Why now, Victor? Why offer to take me, after all these years?" "Because I've watched you rise," he said simply. "While others tried to bury you, you built monuments. While Elias tried to erase you, you became unforgettable. And I think it's time the world saw that." She swallowed. "And what about him? What will he think?" "He'll think he's won," Victor replied, "until he realizes you're not there to compete. You're there to exist, fully, freely, without apology." Isabella closed her eyes. She thought of Elias, smug, arrogant, believing he controlled everything. She thought of Lena, young, beautiful, probably convinced she was the future. She thought of herself, older, wiser, stronger, and realized she didn't need to prove anything. She just needed to show up as herself. No mask, no pretense, no fear. "Yes," she said softly. "I'll go with you." Victor exhaled, almost a laugh. "Good. I'll send a car. Wear gold. It suits you." She smiled, the first real smile in weeks. "Thank you, Victor." "Don't thank me," he said. "Thank yourself for having the courage to walk back into the fire and not burn." The night before the gala, Isabella stood in front of her closet, surrounded by dresses. Couture, designer, timeless. But none felt right until she found it. A gown, deep golden, shimmering like liquid sunlight, backless, with delicate embroidery along the hem. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't provocative. It was elegant, powerful, unapologetic. She slipped it on slowly, letting the fabric glide over her skin like a second skin. Claire appeared in the doorway holding a pair of heels. "You look like royalty," she murmured. Isabella turned to face her, eyes bright, lips painted a soft rose. "I don't want to look like royalty. I want to look like me." Claire nodded. "Then you're perfect." Isabella looked at herself in the mirror, not searching for flaws, not comparing herself to Lena, not measuring her worth against Elias' approval, just seeing herself, whole, unbroken, free. She touched her chest, over her heart. "I'm not going to win tonight," she whispered. "I'm going to be." Claire smiled. "That's the most dangerous thing you can do." The morning of the gala, Isabella woke early. She meditated, drank green tea, read a poem by Maya Angelou, "Still I Rise." She didn't rehearse speeches, didn't plan what to say if Elias approached her, didn't imagine scenarios where she humiliated him or made him regret his choices. She simply prepared to breathe, to stand, to exist, because sometimes the most revolutionary act isn't fighting back. It's refusing to be destroyed. As the limousine pulled up to the Metropolitan Museum of Art that evening, Isabella took a deep breath. Victor stepped out first, offering his hand. She took it, not as a lover, not as a conquest, but as an equal. They walked together, side by side, under the glow of chandeliers and camera flashes. And as they entered the grand hall, Isabella felt it. Not fear, not anger. Isabella walked beside Victor Langley, her hand resting lightly on his arm. Her steps measured, deliberate, unhurried. She didn't scan the room for Elias. She didn't need to. She could feel him, not with her eyes, but with her skin, like static before a storm, like the weight of a shadow you know is coming. And then there he was, Elias Thorne, standing near the entrance, flanked by photographers, his arm possessively wrapped around Lena Moretti's waist. He wore midnight blue, tailored, flawless, arrogant. Lena was breathtaking. Her gown a cascade of silver thread, her hair swept into a sleek chignon, her smile polished like a diamond. She looked like victory, like ownership, like proof. Isabella didn't flinch. She didn't look away. She simply saw them. And in that moment, something shifted inside her. Not rage, not jealousy, not sorrow, but clarity, like the fog lifting after years of wandering blind. She turned slightly toward Victor, just enough to whisper, "He thinks this is his moment." Victor's lips curved, faint, knowing. Let him think that. They continued forward, past tables adorned with orchids and caviar, past murmurs and sideways glances, past the hushed tones of society gossipers leaning in to whisper, "That's Isabella Thorne, with Victor Langley? Really? I heard she's worth more than Elias now. He brought his mistress. She's half his age. And she came with him? That's poetic." Isabella heard it all. She didn't react, because she wasn't here to be judged. She was here to be witnessed. Elias saw her the moment she entered. His breath caught, just slightly, a flicker of surprise, then something darker, recognition. Not of her face, not of her beauty, but of her presence. The way she carried herself, not like a woman trying to reclaim lost glory, but like one who had never needed it to begin with. His grip tightened on Lena's waist. "You see her?" he murmured. Lena followed his gaze and stiffened. "Oh," she said softly. "She's stunning." Elias didn't answer. He watched as Isabella and Victor paused near the bar, accepting glasses of champagne from a waiter. She took a sip, slow, elegant, unhurried. Her eyes scanned the room, not searching for him, not avoiding him, just existing. "She doesn't even look at you," Lena whispered, voice tinged with unease. "That's the point," Elias replied, voice low. "Dangerous. She's pretending she doesn't care, but she does. She always did." Lena frowned. "Why do you say that?" "Because I know her," Elias said, eyes never leaving Isabella. "I know how she hides pain behind grace, how she smiles when she wants to scream, how she walks away when she's been hurt, but never really leaves." Lena swallowed. "You still love her?" Elias turned to her, sharp, cold. "Don't be ridiculous." But the lie tasted bitter on his tongue, because deep down, buried beneath layers of ego, ambition, and denial, he knew the truth. He did love her. Not the version of her he'd discarded, the obedient wife, the silent partner, the trophy he could display at board meetings, but the real her, the woman who laughed until she cried, who painted watercolors in the rain, who held his hand during thunderstorms, who loved him even when he didn't deserve it. And now she stood across the room, radiant, untouchable, free, and he couldn't reach her. Not with money, not with power, not with Lena, because she wasn't broken. She was whole, and that terrified him. Isabella felt his gaze like a physical touch, hot, heavy, suffocating. She didn't turn, didn't acknowledge it. Instead, she leaned closer to Victor, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's watching us." Victor didn't look. He simply nodded. "Let him." She smiled small, knowing. "You're enjoying this." "I'm enjoying watching you," he corrected. "You've become something extraordinary, Isabella, and he can't stand it." She exhaled, soft, steady. "Good. Let him choke on it." Victor chuckled, low, rich. "You're ruthless." "I'm honest," she replied. "And sometimes, honesty is the most brutal weapon." They sipped their champagne in silence. Not awkward, not forced, but comfortable. Like two warriors who'd fought battles side by side, who understood each other without needing to speak. Behind them, the orchestra began to play, a slow, haunting waltz. Couples drifted onto the dance floor, moving in perfect sync, their faces glowing under the lights. Elias watched them, Isabella and Victor, standing so close, yet not touching. Their bodies aligned, their energy intertwined, their silence speaking louder than any words. He felt a pang, sharp, sudden, unexpected. It wasn't jealousy, it was loss. The realization that he'd traded something irreplaceable for something temporary. Lena noticed the shift in his expression. She touched his arm gently. "Are you okay?" He didn't answer immediately. His eyes remained locked on Isabella, watching as she laughed at something Victor said, her head tilting back slightly, her smile genuine, unguarded. "She's happy," he muttered. Lena frowned. "Of course she is. She's with him. He's rich, powerful, respected." Elias turned to her, eyes dark, unreadable. "No, she's happy because she's free, because she doesn't need anyone to define her. Not me, not him, not you." Lena flinched, not from anger, but from truth. She looked at Isabella again, really looked at her, and for the first time she saw what Elias saw. Not a rival, not a ghost, but a woman who had survived the fire and emerged stronger. And suddenly, Lena wondered if she was standing beside the wrong man. The dinner was a symphony of tension. Isabella sat at the head table beside Victor, across from Elias and Lena. The placement was intentional, a silent challenge, a test. Elias tried to ignore her. He focused on his plate, on his wine, on Lena's chatter about fashion shows and private jets. But his eyes kept drifting, to the curve of Isabella's neck, to the way she held her fork with precision, to the quiet confidence in her posture. He hated how calm she was, hated how untouched she seemed, hated how effortlessly she commanded attention without even trying. At one point, Victor raised his glass, not for a toast, but for a moment of reflection. "I'd like to propose a moment of silence," he said, voice resonant, commanding. "For those who have lost themselves in the pursuit of approval and found themselves instead." The room fell still. Isabella looked at him, surprised, touched. Elias tensed. Lena glanced between them, confused, uneasy. Victor continued, his gaze lingering on Isabella. "Sometimes, the greatest victories aren't won with wealth or power, but with silence, with grace, with the courage to walk away and become someone greater than the person who hurt you." The room erupted in applause, polite, respectful, reverent. Isabella didn't clap. She simply smiled, small, sincere, and looked down at her plate. Elias felt the words like a knife twisting in his gut, because they weren't just for her. They were for him, a reminder that he had failed, that he had lost, that he had thrown away something priceless, and now he was being forced to watch it thrive without him. Later, during the dessert course, Elias finally spoke. "Isabella," he said, voice smooth, controlled, but laced with something raw. "You look well." She looked up slowly, deliberately. Her eyes met his calm, clear, unafraid. "Thank you, Elias," she replied, voice soft but firm. "You look unchanged." He smirked, a thin, humorless curve of his lips, still sharp. "And you," she said, taking a bite of chocolate mousse, "still think compliments are weapons." He leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table, fingers interlaced. "I don't need weapons. I have power." Isabella set her fork down gently. "Power doesn't make you whole, Elias. It just makes you loud." He stared at her, really stared, as if seeing her for the first time in years. "You used to be different," he said quietly. "Softer, kinder. You used to laugh at my jokes. You used to believe in me." "I did," she admitted, "until I realized you didn't believe in yourself. Until I saw how you treated people, including me, as tools, as stepping stones, as decorations." Lena shifted uncomfortably beside him. "Isabella, that's not fair." I'm not here to be fair, Isabella interrupted, turning to Lena. I'm here to be honest. And the truth is, you're not the first. You won't be the last. And when he's done with you, he'll move on. Just like he moved on from me. Lena opened her mouth, but no words came. Elias's jaw tightened. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about, Isabella said, voice rising slightly. Not in anger, but in conviction. I lived it. I breathed it. I bled for it. And I chose to walk away. Not because I was weak, but because I was strong enough to leave. She stood up, gracefully, deliberately, and placed her napkin on the table. I'm going to get some air. And with that, she walked away, not running, not fleeing, but leaving. Leaving Elias sitting there, stunned, silent, exposed. Outside, on the terrace overlooking Central Park, Isabella leaned against the railing, breathing in the cool night air. The city glittered below, alive, pulsing, indifferent. She closed her eyes, letting the wind brush against her skin, carrying the scent of rain and distant traffic. She didn't hear him approach, but she felt him. Elias stood behind her, close but not touching. You always did this, he said, voice rough. Walked away when things got hard. She didn't turn. I didn't walk away because things got hard. I walked away because I deserved better. He stepped closer, just enough to feel the heat of his body against hers. You left me, he whispered. No, she replied, opening her eyes, staring at the skyline. You left us. You chose your empire over our marriage, your ambition over our love, your pride over my heart. He swallowed hard. I thought I was protecting you. Protecting me? She laughed, soft, sad. From what? From being loved? From being seen? From being human? He didn't answer, because he had no defense, only regret. And regret was the one thing he couldn't buy, control, or erase. Inside, Lena watched them through the glass doors. Elias and Isabella, standing so close, yet worlds apart. She felt a strange ache in her chest. Not jealousy, not anger, but something deeper, understanding. She had spent months believing she was the prize. The new chapter, the fresh start, the woman who would finally make Elias happy. But now she saw the truth. She wasn't replacing Isabella. She was imitating her, trying to fill a void that could never be filled. Because Isabella wasn't just a wife. She was a soul. And Elias, he had thrown away his soul. And now he was paying for it. Back on the terrace, Elias reached out, just slightly, as if to touch her shoulder. Isabella didn't move. He let his hand fall. I'm sorry, he said, voice breaking. For everything. She turned to face him, eyes glistening, but no tears falling. I know, she said softly, but sorry doesn't rebuild what was broken. And I'm not broken anymore. He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time in years he saw her. And that was the most devastating thing of all. Because for the first time in his life, Elias Thorne, titan of industry, master of manipulation, king of control, had no power over her. None. Not even the illusion of it. He swallowed hard, throat dry, voice ragged. You think you've won? Isabella tilted her head slightly. A small, almost imperceptible movement, but enough to make him feel like a child caught stealing candy. I don't think I've won, she said softly. I think I've simply stopped playing your game. He took a step closer, not threatening, not aggressive, but desperate. Like a man drowning who finally realizes there's no shore left to swim to. You walked out, he whispered. You left me alone. And you let me? She replied, eyes locking onto his, unblinking, unwavering. You didn't chase me. You didn't beg me. You didn't even ask why. You just let me go. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Because she was right. He had let her go. Not because he wanted to, but because he was too proud to admit he needed her. Too afraid to show weakness. Too convinced that money could buy loyalty, even when love couldn't be bought at any price. I thought I was protecting you, he tried again, voice cracking raw. From the world. From my enemies. From myself. Isabella exhaled. Slow, steady, like a sigh that carried years of pain. You weren't protecting me, Elias. You were protecting yourself. From the truth. That I saw you, really saw you, and loved you anyway. Even when you were cruel. Even when you were cold. Even when you forgot how to be human. He looked down. Ashamed, broken, hollow. I didn't know how to be anything else, he admitted. I was taught to win, to dominate, to never show weakness. And you made me feel weak. Because I loved you more than I loved myself. Isabella's expression softened, just slightly. A flicker of something ancient and tender beneath the armor. That's why I left, she said quietly. Because I couldn't watch you destroy yourself. And I couldn't let you destroy me. He lifted his gaze. Eyes glistening, voice trembling. Do you still love me? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned toward the city. The lights below shimmering like fallen stars. The hum of traffic rising like a distant ocean. I loved the man you were, she said finally. The one who danced with me in the kitchen at 2 a.m. The one who cried when his father died. The one who read poetry to me under the stars. That man, he existed. And I loved him deeply. She paused, long enough for the silence to stretch, taut as a wire. But that man is gone, she continued, turning back to face him. And I can't love a ghost. Elias flinched, as if struck. His breath hitched. His hands curled into fists at his sides. You're wrong, he rasped. He's still here, buried, but not dead. Isabella studied him. Not with pity, not with anger, but with quiet sorrow. Then dig him up, she said softly. Not for me, not for Lena, not for anyone else. For you. Because if you don't, you'll spend the rest of your life pretending to be someone you're not, while the real you rots inside. She took a step back, graceful, deliberate, final. I'm not here to save you, Elias. I'm here to remind you that you're not invincible. That love isn't a trophy. That power doesn't fill the void. And that sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is let go. And with that, she turned. Not running, not fleeing, but walking away, with her head high, her shoulders straight, her heart whole, leaving him standing there, alone, exposed, stripped bare. Inside the gala hall, the music had shifted, from classical waltzes to sultry jazz, the kind that made people sway and whisper and pretend they weren't thinking about things they shouldn't. Lena stood near the bar, clutching a glass of champagne so tightly her knuckles turned white. She watched Elias through the glass doors, his silhouette stiff, his posture defeated, his hands still hovering where Isabella had been moments before. She felt a strange ache in her chest. Not jealousy, not rage, but something deeper. Understanding. She had spent months believing she was the prize. The new chapter, the fresh start, the woman who would finally make Elias happy. But now she saw the truth. She wasn't replacing Isabella. She was imitating her, trying to fill a void that could never be filled. Because Isabella wasn't just a wife. She was a soul. And Elias, he had thrown away his soul. And now he was paying for it. Victor found Isabella near the entrance, slipping off her heels and rubbing her feet with quiet exhaustion. You okay? He asked, handing her a glass of water. She nodded, small, tired smile. Just tired of pretending. He leaned against the wall beside her. Pretending what? That I don't care, she admitted. That I'm not affected. That I didn't feel anything when he looked at me like that. Victor studied her, eyes sharp, knowing. You did feel something. She sighed. Yes, pain, regret, sadness, but not longing, not love, not anymore. He nodded slowly. Good, because you deserve better than that. She looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, she saw something in his eyes she hadn't noticed before. Not desire, not admiration, but respect. Genuine, quiet, unwavering respect. You've always seen me, she murmured, even when I didn't see myself. He smiled, small, warm. That's because you're impossible to ignore, even when you try to disappear. She laughed, soft, genuine. I don't want to disappear anymore. Then don't, he said firmly. Stay, shine. Let the world see you. Let Elias see what he lost. Not to hurt him, but to remind yourself that you're worth more than his approval. She took a sip of water, cool, refreshing, grounding. I think I'm ready, she said quietly, to stop looking back. Victor nodded. Then let's go. They walked back into the ballroom together. Not as lovers, not as allies, but as equals. Two people who had survived storms, who had rebuilt themselves from ashes, who understood the cost of survival. And as they entered, the room fell silent. Not out of awe, not out of fear, but out of recognition. Because Isabella Thorne wasn't just a name. She was a force. And Elias, he was just a man, standing in the corner, watching her, his eyes hollow, his heart empty, his empire crumbling around him. Later, during the final toast, Victor raised his glass. Not to Elias, not to Lena, not to the sponsors, but to Isabella. To those who rise after falling, he said, voice rich with emotion. To those who rebuild after being destroyed. To those who choose themselves, even when the world tells them they're nothing without someone else. The room erupted in applause. Isabella didn't clap. She simply smiled, small, serene, unshaken. And then she looked at Elias. Their eyes met across the room. Not with hatred, not with longing, but with quiet understanding. He nodded once, barely perceptible. She returned the gesture, just as subtle, just as final. And in that moment, something shifted. Not reconciliation, not forgiveness, but closure. Because sometimes the most powerful ending isn't a reunion. It's a release. Back in his penthouse later that night, Elias sat alone at his desk. The same one where he'd signed divorce papers, fired executives, approved hostile takeovers. But tonight he stared at a blank sheet of paper. No contracts, no strategies, no plans, just silence. He picked up a pen, his hand trembling slightly, and began to write. Dear Isabella, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if you'll care. But I need to say it anyway. I was wrong. About everything. About you. About love. About power. About what matters. I thought I could control the world. But I couldn't even control myself. I thought I could replace you. But I only replaced your presence, not your soul. You didn't leave me because you stopped loving me. You left because you loved yourself more than you loved me. And that's the greatest lesson I've ever learned. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I hope someday you'll know that I tried, that I'm trying, to become someone worthy of the woman you were, the woman you still are. Not for you, for me. With regret, Elias, he folded the letter, carefully, reverently, and placed it in an envelope. He didn't seal it. He didn't address it. He just left it on his desk, a confession, a plea. A monument to everything he'd lost. And then he poured himself a glass of whiskey, the same bottle he'd drunk the night he decided to bring Lena to the gala. He took a sip, letting the burn settle in his throat. And for the first time in years, he let himself cry. Meanwhile, Isabella lay in bed, not sleeping, not crying, just breathing. The city outside hummed, alive, restless, indifferent. She thought of Elias. Not with bitterness, not with longing, but with quiet sadness. Because he was still trapped, still fighting ghosts, still clinging to a version of himself that no longer existed. And she realized with startling clarity that she didn't hate him. She pitied him, because the greatest prison isn't built of stone or steel. It's built of pride, of denial, of the refusal to change. And Elias, he was still locked inside. The next morning, Isabella woke early. Sunlight streaming through her windows, birds chirping outside, the world moving forward without her permission. She made tea, read poetry, wrote in her journal, and then she picked up her phone, scrolled through photos, old ones, faded ones, ones she hadn't looked at in years. Her and Elias laughing on a beach, dancing in the rain, holding hands at a museum exhibit. She didn't delete them. She didn't burn them. She simply closed the album and moved on, because some memories aren't meant to be erased. They're meant to be honored and then released. At the office later that week, Isabella sat in her meeting room, surrounded by women she'd helped rebuild their lives. They spoke of trauma, of loss, of resilience, of choosing themselves. And as she listened, truly listened, she realized something profound. She wasn't just helping them, she was healing herself. Because every story they told was a mirror, reflecting her own journey, her own pain, her own strength. And as she looked around the room, at their faces, their smiles, their tears, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because she'd won, not because she'd conquered, but because she'd chosen herself. Not healing silence, but heavy silence, the kind that presses against your ribs like a weight, reminding you that some wounds don't bleed outward. They bleed inward, quietly, relentlessly, until you forget what it feels like to breathe without pain. She lay still beneath the sheets, eyes open, staring at the ceiling as if it held answers she couldn't find anywhere else. Her phone buzzed once, twice on the nightstand. She didn't reach for it. She knew who it was. Claire, Victor, maybe even Elias. But she wasn't ready. Not yet. Because last night hadn't ended with fireworks or declarations or dramatic exits. It had ended with something far more devastating. Closure. And closure doesn't always feel like freedom. Sometimes it feels like grief. Because when you finally let go, truly let go, you realize how much you were holding on to. Not just the person, but the hope, the memory, the dream of what could have been. And now there was nothing left to hold. Only air, only space, only herself. She rose slowly, limbs stiff, heart heavier than her bones, and padded barefoot to the kitchen. The coffee maker gurgled softly as it brewed, filling the apartment with the scent of roasted beans and quiet desperation. She poured a cup, black, no sugar, and carried it to the window overlooking Central Park. The city was waking up. Joggers in neon, delivery bikes weaving through traffic, street vendors setting up carts, pigeons fluttering over benches where lovers sat whispering secrets. Normal life, ordinary moments, the kind she used to take for granted. Before Elias, before the divorce, before the gala, before she became Isabella Thorne, the woman who walked away. Now she was just Isabella. No title, no husband, no mansion, just her. And for the first time in years, she wondered if that was enough. The phone buzzed again. This time she picked it up. Claire's name flashed across the screen. She answered, voice hoarse, raw. Hey, you okay? Claire asked immediately, no preamble, no small talk, just concern. Pure, unfiltered. Isabella exhaled, long, shaky. I don't know. That bad. I thought I was ready, Isabella whispered. I thought I'd moved on, that seeing him wouldn't hurt, that I'd be stronger. But, Claire prompted gently. But when he looked at me last night, Isabella swallowed hard. It wasn't anger. It wasn't pride. It was loss, like he finally saw what he'd thrown away. And it broke him. Claire was silent for a moment, then sighed. Bella, you can't carry his pain anymore. You did your part. You walked away. You rebuilt. You showed up. You faced him. That's all you owe him. I know, Isabella murmured. But why does it still hurt? Because you loved him, Claire said simply. Not the version he became. Not the man who brought his mistress to a gala to prove he'd moved on. But the one who made you laugh until you cried. Who held you during thunderstorms. Who whispered, I love you, even when he was exhausted. Isabella closed her eyes, tears threatening, but refusing to fall. I miss that man, she admitted softly. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the tyrant, the human, the one who needed me as much as I needed him. And you think he's still in there? Claire asked. I don't know, Isabella replied. Maybe, maybe not. But even if he is, I can't save him. I already saved myself. Claire exhaled, slow, steady. That's the most important thing. There was a pause, comfortable, familiar, safe. Then, "What are you going to do now?" Isabella looked out the window again, watching a couple kiss under an umbrella as rain began to fall. "I don't know," she said quietly. "I think I need to disappear for a while. Not physically, emotionally. Let the world forget me. Let myself remember who I am without him. Without the gala, without the whispers, without the expectations." Claire nodded, though Isabella couldn't see her. "Good. Take the time. Heal. Breathe. Don't rush it. You've earned the right to be selfish." Isabella smiled small, tired. "Thank you, Claire." "Always," Claire replied. "And if you change your mind, if you want to scream, cry, drink wine till sunrise, I'm here." Isabella hung up, slowly, deliberately, and placed the phone face down on the counter. She sipped her coffee, bitter, strong, grounding. And then, she walked to her study. The desk was cluttered. Papers, notebooks, photos, letters from women she'd helped rebuild their lives. She pulled out a blank journal, leather-bound, thick pages, untouched. She opened it to the first page and began to write. "Dear me, you survived the fire. You walked through the ashes. You built yourself from the rubble. And now you're standing at the edge of something new. Not a beginning, not an end, but a transition. You don't have to be strong all the time. You don't have to smile when you're hurting. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, especially not to him. Let yourself feel. Let yourself grieve. Let yourself rage. Let yourself be messy, because healing isn't linear. It's jagged. It's ugly. It's beautiful. You don't owe him forgiveness. You don't owe the world perfection. You only owe yourself truth. So tell it, write it, scream it, cry it, burn it, whatever it takes, do it. For you. With love, Isabella." She closed the journal, fingers trembling slightly, and placed it on the shelf beside her other journals, each one a monument to survival, to resilience, to becoming. And then, she picked up her phone again, scrolled through contacts, found one she hadn't called in months. Victor Langley. She hesitated, thumb hovering over the call button. Then she pressed it. It rang once, twice, 3 times. And then, "Isabella?" Victor answered, voice smooth, calm, unreadable. "I was wondering when you'd call." She exhaled, soft, shaky. "I need to talk." He didn't ask why, didn't press, just said, "Come over. I'll make tea." An hour later, she stood outside his penthouse, sleek glass, minimalist design, views of the Hudson River stretching endlessly into the horizon. He opened the door before she could knock, dressed casually in a navy sweater and dark slacks, hair slightly tousled, eyes sharp but kind. "You look like hell," he said bluntly. She laughed, dry, humorless. "Thanks. I feel like it too." He stepped aside, gesturing for her to enter. The apartment was warm, lit by floor lamps, scented with sandalwood and bergamot, filled with books and art and quiet elegance. She sank onto the sofa, legs crossed, hands folded in her lap. Victor handed her a cup of tea, jasmine, steaming, fragrant. They sat in silence for a long moment, not awkward, not forced, but comfortable, like two people who'd weathered storms together, who understood each other without needing to speak. Finally, "What happened last night?" Victor asked gently. Isabella stared into her tea, watching the steam curl upward, disappearing into the air. "I thought I was ready," she said quietly. "I thought I'd moved on, that seeing him wouldn't hurt, that I'd be stronger. But when he looked at me, it wasn't anger. It wasn't pride. It was loss, like he finally saw what he'd thrown away. And it broke him." Victor nodded slowly. "And that scared you?" She looked up, eyes glistening, but no tears falling. "Yes, because if he's broken, then maybe I'm not as healed as I thought I was." Victor studied her, not with pity, not with judgment, but with quiet understanding. "You're not broken, Isabella," he said firmly. "You're human, and humans feel, humans grieve, humans love even when they shouldn't, even when it hurts." She swallowed hard. "I miss him," I know, Victor replied. Not the man he became, not the CEO, not the tyrant, but the one who made you laugh, who held you, who whispered, I love you, even when he was exhausted. Isabella nodded, small, barely perceptible. And you think he's still in there? Victor asked. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe, maybe not. But even if he is, I can't save him. I already saved myself. Victor leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. Good, because you weren't meant to save him. You were meant to save you. She exhaled, long, slow, releasing something heavy she hadn't realized she was carrying. What do I do now? She whispered. Victor smiled, small, knowing. You live, not for him, not for the world, not for anyone else, for you. Let yourself feel, let yourself grieve, let yourself be messy, because healing isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. Isabella looked at him, really looked, and for the first time in years, she saw something in his eyes she hadn't noticed before. Not desire, not admiration, but respect. Genuine, quiet, unwavering respect. You've always seen me, she murmured, even when I didn't see myself. He nodded. That's because you're impossible to ignore, even when you try to disappear. She laughed, soft, genuine. I don't want to disappear anymore. Then don't, he said firmly. Stay, shine. Let the world see you. Let Elias see what he lost. Not to hurt him, but to remind yourself that you're worth more than his approval. She took a sip of tea, cool, refreshing, grounding. I think I'm ready, she said quietly, to stop looking back. Victor nodded. Then let's go. They walked back into the living room together. Not as lovers, not as allies, but as equals. Two people who had survived storms, who had rebuilt themselves from ashes, who understood the cost of survival. And as they entered, the room fell silent. Not out of awe, not out of fear, but out of recognition. Because Isabella Thorne wasn't just a name. She was a force. And Elias, he was just a man, standing in the corner, watching her, his eyes hollow, his heart empty, his empire crumbling around him. Later that evening, as Isabella prepared to leave, Victor stopped her at the door. Don't rush this, he said quietly. Healing takes time. Don't let anyone, including yourself, pressure you into being okay before you are. She nodded, small, sincere. Thank you, Victor. He smiled, warm, genuine. Anytime, Bella. You know where to find me. She turned to leave, but paused, hand on the doorknob. Victor. He looked at her, eyebrows raised. If he calls, if he tries to reach out, what should I do? Victor didn't hesitate. Tell him the truth, that you're not his anymore, that you're not waiting, that you're not broken, that you're whole, and that if he wants to see you again, he'll have to earn it. Not with money, not with power, not with apologies, but with change. Isabella smiled, small, fierce, unshaken. I will. And with that, she walked out, head high, shoulders straight, heart whole, leaving Victor standing there, watching her go, a faint smile playing on his lips, because he knew, better than anyone, that Isabella Thorne wasn't just not really. Not since the gala. Not since Elias looked at her with those hollow eyes. Eyes that held no rage, no arrogance, no control, just loss. The kind that doesn't scream. It whispers, and it lingers. Victor had made tea, jasmine again, steaming, fragrant, but she hadn't touched it. She'd let it cool while she stared at the skyline, trying to find peace in the chaos below. He didn't push her, didn't ask questions, didn't try to fix her. He simply sat beside her, quiet, present, steady, like an anchor in a storm she hadn't realized was still raging inside her. You're thinking about him, he said finally, voice low, calm. She didn't turn. I'm thinking about us. He tilted his head slightly. Which us? The one that existed before he became a monster, she whispered. Before I became a ghost. Before we stopped being people and started being roles, CEO, ex-wife, mistress, billionaire, survivor. Victor exhaled, slow, measured. You were never a ghost, Isabella. You were always the most real person in the room. She turned to look at him, eyes glistening, lips trembling. Then why does it still hurt? Because you loved him? Victor replied gently. Not the version he became. Not the man who brought his mistress to a gala to prove he'd moved on. But the one who made you laugh until you cried. Who held you during thunderstorms. Who whispered, I love you, even when he was exhausted. Isabella swallowed hard, throat tight, heart heavier than her bones. I miss that man, she admitted softly. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the tyrant, the human, the one who needed me as much as I needed him. Victor studied her, not with pity, not with judgment, but with quiet understanding. And you think he's still in there? He asked. I don't know, she murmured. Maybe, maybe not. But even if he is, I can't save him. I already saved myself. Victor nodded slowly. Good, because you weren't meant to save him. You were meant to save you. She exhaled, long, shaky, and turned back to the window. Outside, the rain intensified, falling harder now, washing the streets clean, erasing footprints, blurring boundaries. And then her phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times. She didn't reach for it, but Victor did. He picked it up, glanced at the screen, and handed it to her without a word. It was Elias. Her stomach dropped. Her hands trembled. She stared at the name, glowing on the screen like a warning. Victor watched her, silent, patient, unwavering. Finally, she answered, Hello. There was a pause, long, heavy, suffocating. Then, Isabella. His voice was rough, raw, unsteady. Not the smooth, controlled tone of the CEO. Not the arrogant bark of the tycoon. Just Elias, broken, bare, real. She didn't speak immediately. She let him hear her breathe, let him feel the weight of silence. Then, What do you want, Elias? He swallowed, audible, painful. I need to see you. She closed her eyes, tears threatening, but refusing to fall. No, please, he whispered. Just once. I need to explain. You don't owe me explanations, she said quietly. You owe yourself truth. Another pause, longer this time. So long she thought he'd hung up. But then, I wrote you a letter. Her breath caught. A letter. Yes, he said, voice cracking. I left it on my desk. I didn't seal it. I didn't address it. I just wrote it. For you. For me. For the man I used to be. Isabella didn't respond immediately. She looked at Victor, eyes wide, searching. He gave her a small nod, silent permission. She took a deep breath. Where is it? In my office, Elias replied. On my desk. The one where I signed the divorce papers. Where I fired executives. Where I approved hostile takeovers. Where I destroyed us. She swallowed hard. Why now? Because I'm tired, he admitted, voice breaking. Tired of pretending. Tired of winning. Tired of being alone. I thought I could control the world. But I couldn't even control myself. I thought I could replace you. But I only replaced your presence. Not your soul. Isabella closed her eyes, letting his words sink in, like stones dropping into still water. And then she said, I'll come. Elias went still, so still she could hear the faint sound of his breathing. You will. Yes, she said softly. Not because I forgive you, not because I want you back, but because I need to see what's left of the man I loved. And if there's nothing there, then I'll walk away for good. He exhaled, long, shaky. Thank you. She didn't reply. She simply ended the call. And then she looked at Victor. I'm going to his office. He didn't flinch, didn't argue, just nodded. When? Tomorrow, she said quietly. At noon. Victor studied her, eyes sharp, knowing. Do you want me to come with you? She hesitated, then shook her head. No, this is between us. I need to face him alone. He didn't protest, didn't push, just said, Be careful, Bella. He's dangerous, not because he's powerful, but because he's broken. And broken men can be unpredictable. She smiled small, sad, unshaken. I know, but I'm not afraid anymore. Victor nodded slowly. Good, then go. Face him. Let him see you. Let him see what he lost. And if he tries to pull you back, remind him that you're not his anymore, that you're whole, that you're free. She took a step forward toward the door, then paused. Victor, he looked at her, eyebrows raised. If he asks, if he tries to make me stay, what should I say? Victor didn't hesitate. Tell him the truth, that you're not his anymore, that you're not waiting, that you're not broken, that you're whole, and that if he wants to see you again, he'll have to earn it. Not with money, not with power, not with apologies, but with change. Isabella nodded, small, sincere. I will. And with that, she walked out, head high, shoulders straight, heart whole, leaving Victor standing there, watching her go, a faint smile playing on his lips, because he knew, better than anyone, that Isabella Thorne wasn't just surviving. She was thriving, and that was the most dangerous thing of all. The next morning, Isabella woke early, sunlight streaming through her windows, birds chirping outside, the world moving forward without her permission. She made tea, read poetry, wrote in her journal, and then she dressed, not in couture, not in silk, not in armor, just in simple black pants, a white blouse, and a leather jacket, practical, elegant, unapologetic. She didn't wear makeup, didn't style her hair, didn't try to impress. She simply showed up as herself. No mask, no pretense, no fear, because sometimes the most revolutionary act isn't fighting back. It's refusing to be destroyed. At noon, she arrived at Thorne Industries headquarters, a towering glass monolith that pierced the sky like a dagger. Security recognized her immediately, not with suspicion, not with hostility, but with quiet respect. They let her pass without question. She rode the elevator to the top floor, the same one where she'd once walked hand in hand with Elias, laughing, dreaming, believing they were invincible. Now she walked alone. The doors opened, and there he was. Elias stood behind his desk, not seated, not leaning, not posing, just standing, like a statue carved from regret. He wore no suit, no tie, no cufflinks, just a dark sweater and slacks. Rumpled, unshaven, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling slightly. He looked older, fragile, human. Isabella didn't flinch, didn't look away, didn't speak. She simply walked in, slow, deliberate, unhurried, and stopped in front of his desk. Their eyes met, not with hatred, not with longing, but with quiet understanding. He nodded once, barely perceptible. She returned the gesture, just as subtle, just as final. And in that moment, something shifted. Not reconciliation, not forgiveness, but closure. Because sometimes the most powerful ending isn't a reunion. It's a release. Elias cleared his throat, voice rough, unsteady. You came. I did, she replied softly. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to. He nodded slowly, eyes glistening, but no tears falling. I wrote you a letter. She didn't move. I know. He reached for the envelope, placed it gently on the desk, sliding it toward her. She didn't pick it up. Instead, she looked at him, really looked, and for the first time in years, she saw the man he used to be. The one who danced with her in the kitchen at 2 a.m. The one who cried when his father died. The one who read poetry to her under the stars. And she realized, with startling clarity, that he was still there, buried, broken, but not gone. I'm sorry, he whispered, voice cracking. For everything. She didn't answer immediately. She simply stared at him, eyes calm, clear, unafraid. Then, she said, sorry doesn't rebuild what was broken. And I'm not broken anymore. He flinched as if struck. His hands curled into fists at his sides. I know, he rasped. But I need you to know. I'm trying to become someone worthy of the woman you were. The the woman you still are. She took a step closer, graceful, deliberate, final. You don't need to be worthy of me, Elias, she said quietly. You need to be worthy of yourself. He looked down, ashamed, broken, hollow. I don't know how, he admitted. I've spent my life controlling everything. And now, I don't even know how to control my own pain. Isabella reached out, slowly, deliberately, and placed her hand on his desk, not touching him, not comforting him, just grounding herself. You start by being honest, she said softly. With yourself, with me, with the world. You start by admitting you were wrong, that you failed, that you hurt people, that you threw away something priceless. And now you're paying for it. He lifted his gaze, eyes glistening, voice trembling. Will you help me? She didn't answer immediately. She looked at the letter, still lying on the desk, untouched. Then she said, No, I won't help you, because you don't need my help. You need to help yourself. He swallowed hard, throat dry, voice ragged. Then what do I do? Isabella took a deep breath, letting the silence stretch, taut as a wire. You let go, she said finally, of the past, of the pride, of the illusion that you can control everything. You let go of the man you thought you were, and become the man you're meant to be. Not for me, not for Lena, not for the world, for you. He stared at her, really stared, and for the first time in years he saw her, not as his ex-wife. Didn't pause, didn't hesitate. She walked straight toward Elias's office, past receptionists who glanced up but didn't speak, past security guards who stiffened but didn't stop her, past glass walls reflecting her silhouette like a ghost haunting its own tomb. And then there it was, his door, heavy oak, brass handle, engraved with his initials, E.T. She reached for it, fingers trembling slightly, and pushed it open. He was standing behind his desk, not seated, not leaning, not posing, just standing, like a statue carved from regret. He looked older, fragile, human, no suit, no tie, no cufflinks, just a dark sweater and slacks. Rumpled, unshaven, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling slightly. He didn't move when she entered, didn't speak, didn't breathe. He just stared. And for the first time in years, Isabella saw him. Not as the CEO, not as the billionaire, not as the tyrant, but as the man he used to be. The one who danced with her in the kitchen at 2 a.m. The one who cried when his father died. The one who read poetry to her under the stars. And she realized with startling clarity that he was still there, buried, broken, but not gone. I'm sorry, he whispered, voice cracking, for everything. She didn't answer immediately. She simply stared at him, eyes calm, clear, unafraid. Then, she said, Sorry doesn't rebuild what was broken, and I'm not broken anymore. He flinched as if struck. His hands curled into fists at his sides. I know, he rasped, but I need you to know. I'm trying to become someone worthy of the woman you were, the woman you still are. She took a step closer, graceful, deliberate, final. You don't need to be worthy of me, Elias, she said quietly. You need to be worthy of yourself. He looked down, ashamed, broken, hollow. I don't know how, he admitted. I've spent my life controlling everything. And now, I don't even know how to control my own pain. Isabella reached out, slowly, deliberately, and placed her hand on his desk, not touching him, not comforting him, just grounding herself. You start by being honest, she said softly. With yourself, with me, with the world. You start by admitting you were wrong, that you failed, that you hurt people, that you threw away something priceless. And now you're paying for it. He swallowed hard, throat dry, voice ragged. Will you help me? She didn't answer immediately. She looked at the letter, still lying on the desk, untouched. Then she said, No, I won't help you, because you don't need my help. You need to help yourself. He stared at her, really stared, and for the first time in years he saw her, not as his ex-wife, not as his rival, not as his ghost, but as the woman he had loved and lost. And he realized, with crushing finality, that he would never get her back. Because she wasn't waiting. She was already gone. The silence stretched, thick, suffocating, heavy with everything unsaid, everything undone, everything shattered beyond repair. Elias finally moved, slowly, deliberately, and picked up the letter. He didn't open it, didn't read it, just held it, fingers trembling, eyes glistening, voice breaking. "I wrote this for you," he whispered, "not to beg, not to apologize, but to explain, to show you that I see what I did, that I feel what I lost, that I'm not the man I was, but I'm trying to be better." Isabella didn't reach for it. She simply watched him, eyes calm, clear, unafraid. "Then read it," she said softly, out loud. He blinked, surprised, confused. "You want me to read it to you?" "Yes," she replied, "because if you're going to face yourself, you need to face me too." He hesitated, thumb brushing over the envelope, heart pounding, like a drum in his chest. Then he opened it, slowly, carefully, as if handling something sacred. He pulled out the letter, single sheet of paper, handwritten, ink slightly smudged in places. He cleared his throat, voice rough, unsteady. "Dear Isabella, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if you'll care. But I need to say it anyway. I was wrong. About everything. About you. About love. About power. About what matters. I thought I could control the world. But I couldn't even control myself. I thought I could replace you. But I only replaced your presence, not your soul. You didn't leave me because you stopped loving me. You left because you loved yourself more than you loved me. And that's the greatest lesson I've ever learned. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I hope someday you'll know that I tried, that I'm trying, to become someone worthy of the woman you were, the woman you still are. Not for you, for me." With regret, Elias he stopped, voice cracking, tears falling freely now, dripping onto the paper. He didn't wipe them away. He just let them fall. Isabella didn't move, didn't speak, didn't flinch. She simply listened. And when he finished, she looked at him, really looked, and for the first time in years, she saw the man he used to be. The one who danced with her in the kitchen at 2 a.m. The one who cried when his father died. The one who read poetry to her under the stars. And she realized, with startling clarity, that he was still there, buried, broken, but not gone. "I believe you," she said quietly, "that you're trying, that you're hurting, that you're lost." He lifted his gaze, eyes glistening, voice trembling. "Then why can't you stay?" She exhaled, long, slow, releasing something heavy she hadn't realized she was carrying. "Because I'm not yours anymore, Elias," she said softly. "I'm not waiting. I'm not broken. I'm whole. And if you want to see me again, you'll have to earn it. Not with money, not with power, not with apologies, but with change." He stared at her, really stared, and for the first time in years he saw her, not as his ex-wife, not as his rival, not as his ghost, but as the woman he had loved and lost. And he realized, with crushing finality, that he would never get her back. Because she wasn't waiting. She was already gone. The silence stretched, thick, suffocating, heavy with everything unsaid, everything undone, everything shattered beyond repair. Elias finally moved, slowly, deliberately, and placed the letter back on the desk. He didn't fold it, didn't seal it, just left it there, like a monument to everything he'd lost. Isabella turned to leave, head high, shoulders straight, heart whole. But before she reached the door, he spoke. "Isabella." She paused, didn't turn. "Yes." He took a deep breath, letting the silence stretch, taut as a wire. "I love you." She didn't flinch, didn't look back, didn't cry. She simply stood there. And then she said, "I know, but love isn't enough. Not anymore." And with that, she walked out, leaving him standing there, alone, exposed, stripped bare, leaving the letter on the desk, a confession, a plea, a monument to everything he'd lost. And as the elevator doors closed behind her, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because she'd won, not because she'd conquered, but because she'd chosen herself. Her hands trembled, not from fear, not from anger, but from something deeper, something raw, something that had been buried beneath years of silence, of survival, of pretending she was stronger than she felt. She pressed her palm against the cold metal wall, letting the vibration of the descent steady her heartbeat. "You're okay," she whispered to herself. "You're free." But the words tasted like ash on her tongue. Because freedom wasn't supposed to feel this heavy. It wasn't supposed to leave your chest hollow, your throat tight, your soul trembling like glass about to shatter. She stepped out into the lobby, past the marble floors, past the security guards who nodded respectfully, past the receptionist who offered a polite smile, and walked straight through the revolving doors into the New York afternoon. The city roared around her, horns blaring, people rushing, taxis swerving, sirens wailing in the distance. Life moved forward, unstoppable, indifferent, and she stood still, for a moment, just breathing, letting the wind brush against her skin, carrying the scent of rain and exhaust and distant coffee shops. Then, she pulled out her phone, scrolled through contacts, found one she hadn't called in months. Victor Langley. She hesitated, thumb hovering over the call button. Then she pressed it. It rang once, twice, 3 times. And then, "Isabella?" Victor answered, voice smooth, calm, unreadable. "I was wondering when you'd call." She exhaled, soft, shaky. "I just left his office." There was a pause, long, heavy, suffocating. Then, "How did it go?" She didn't answer immediately. She looked up at the sky, gray, brooding, threatening rain. "I told him I'm not his anymore," she said quietly. "That I'm not waiting, that I'm not broken, that I'm whole." Victor didn't respond right away. He let her speak, let her breathe, let her grieve. Finally, "And what did he say?" "He said he loves me," she whispered, "and that he's trying to be better." Another pause. Then, "And you?" She swallowed hard, throat tight, heart heavier than her bones. "I believe him," she admitted softly. "I believe he's hurting. I believe he's lost. I believe he wants to change. But, Victor prompted gently. "But love isn't enough," she finished. "Not anymore. Not after everything. Not after the gala. Not after Lena. Not after the years of silence. Not after the divorce papers. Not after the way he looked at me like I was a ghost he couldn't touch." Victor exhaled, slow, steady. "You're right. Love isn't enough. Not when it's wrapped in regret. Not when it's built on broken promises. Not when it's used as a weapon instead of a shield." Isabella closed her eyes, letting the words sink in, like stones dropping into still water. "And what now?" she asked quietly. "Now," Victor replied, voice firm, unwavering. "You live, not for him, not for the world, not for anyone else. For you. Let yourself feel. Let yourself grieve. Let yourself be messy. Because healing isn't about being perfect. It's about being real." She exhaled, long, shaky, and turned toward the street. "I think I need to disappear for a while," she murmured. "Not physically, emotionally. Let the world forget me. Let myself remember who I am without him. Without the gala. Without the whispers. Without the expectations." Victor didn't argue, didn't push, just said, "Good. Take the time. Heal. Breathe. Don't rush it. You've earned the right to be selfish." Isabella smiled, small, tired. "Thank you, Victor." "Always," he replied. "And if you change your mind? If you want to scream, cry, drink wine till sunrise? I'm here." She hung up, slowly, deliberately, and placed the phone face down on the bench beside her. She sat there for a long moment, watching the city move around her. People rushing, cars honking, pigeons fluttering over benches where lovers sat whispering secrets. Normal life, ordinary moments, the kind she used to take for granted. Before Elias, before the divorce, before the gala, before she became Isabella Thorne, the woman who walked away. Now she was just Isabella. No title, no husband, no mansion, just her. And for the first time in years, she wondered if that was enough. Back at her apartment, Isabella poured herself a glass of red wine, deep, rich, velvety, and carried it to the window overlooking Central Park. The rain had started again. Slow, deliberate drops that tapped against the glass like fingers drumming on a coffin lid. She sipped the wine, letting the burn settle in her throat, warming her from the inside out. And then she picked up her journal, opened it to a blank page, and began to write. Dear me, you survived the fire. You walked through the ashes. You built yourself from the rubble. And now you're standing at the edge of something new. Not a beginning, not an end, but a transition. You don't have to be strong all the time. You don't have to smile when you're hurting. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, especially not to him. Let yourself feel. Let yourself grieve. Let yourself rage. Let yourself be messy, because healing isn't linear. It's jagged. It's ugly. It's beautiful. You don't owe him forgiveness. You don't owe the world perfection. You only owe yourself truth. So tell it, write it, scream it, cry it, burn it, whatever it takes, do it. For you. With love, Isabella. She closed the journal, fingers trembling slightly, and placed it on the shelf beside her other journals, each one a monument to survival, to resilience, to becoming. And then she picked up her phone again, scrolled through contacts, found one she hadn't called in months. Claire. She hesitated, thumb hovering over the call button. Then she pressed it. It rang once, twice, 3 times. And then, hey. Claire answered, voice warm, familiar, safe. Isabella exhaled, soft, shaky. I just left his office. Claire didn't ask why, didn't press, just said, how did it go? Isabella didn't answer immediately. She looked out the window, watching the rain fall, washing the streets clean, erasing footprints, blurring boundaries. Then she said, I told him I'm not his anymore, that I'm not waiting, that I'm not broken, that I'm whole. Claire was silent for a moment, then sighed. Bella, you can't carry his pain anymore. You did your part. You walked away. You rebuilt. You showed up. You faced him. That's all you owe him. I know, Isabella murmured. But why does it still hurt? Because you loved him, Claire said simply. Not the version he became. Not the man who brought his mistress to a gala to prove he'd moved on. But the one who made you laugh until you cried. Who held you during thunderstorms. Who whispered, I love you, even when he was exhausted. Isabella closed her eyes, tears threatening, but refusing to fall. I miss that man, she admitted softly. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the tyrant, the human, the one who needed me as much as I needed him. Claire exhaled, slow, steady. Bella, you've earned the right to grieve, to feel, to be messy. Don't rush it. Don't force it. Let it come. Let it go. Let yourself heal. Isabella nodded, small, sincere. Thank you, Claire. Always, Claire replied. And if you change your mind, if you want to scream, cry, drink wine till sunrise, I'm here. Isabella hung up, slowly, deliberately, and placed the phone face down on the counter. She sipped her wine, bitter, strong, grounding, and then she walked to her study. The desk was cluttered. Papers, notebooks, photos, letters from women she'd helped rebuild their lives. She pulled out a blank journal, leather-bound, thick pages, untouched. She opened it to the first page and began to write. Dear me, you survived the